I have copies of Paramahansa Prananamada Badanda, Pranana Banana, um, the Saint with Two Bodies. And he did commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. That was his choice, was the Bhagavad Gita, and mostly the only scripture that he read was the Gita. But this is what he says about the Gita. What the Gita possesses. Remember, this is a saint with two bodies, the Kriya Yogi, disciple of Paramahansa. The Gita is a representation of the supreme knowledge itself. Now, the initiation I was given with Totapuri is just simply referred to as supreme knowledge or knowledge. So the initiation was into supreme knowledge. So the Gita, and that was the one scripture I was told to read was the Gita. So Prananabananda says that the Gita is representation of supreme knowledge. I have a copy right here. I've got a copy there, a copy there. When the Gita is studied in its entirety, it gives forth fruit like the wish-fulfilling tree. So everything he says about the Gita is literally true. None of it is fancy. It's literal. It's literal. Reading the Gita is literal, and everything he says about it is literal. And I've experienced this, so I know that it's literal. The Gita is the total essence of all scriptures, and that's true. I've looked at the Gita after reading what he said about it, and I've read just about every other scripture, and it definitely is the essence of all scriptures. All the scriptures are contained in the Gita. And the Gita is simple, it's precise. For this reason, every sloka that it has, in fact, every aspect, there are visible threads revealing endless wisdom. So all the wisdom is in the Gita. This is omnidirectional. I mean, it directs in all ways. So you think of a light beam like a lighthouse for ships, and there's just one beam, and it rotates around. It'll hit something. Rotates around. Whereas the Gita, omnidirectional, it's light in all directions at all times. So it's always dispelling darkness. By following the Gita with devotedness and the aid of a guru. Now, Prananabananda, listen to how he mentions guru. He doesn't say that guru is some mysterious spirit that you can't see, you can't touch his feet, you can't talk to. He says with the aid of your guru, with your guru occasionally reading the Gita with you and explaining parts of the Gita, or if you have questions about the Gita, that's the guru. We don't need to make it complicated. The guru is somebody that you have a relationship, and they desire to have a relationship with you, and you desire to have a relationship with them. And you can look in each other's eyes, you can touch each other. It's not some mysterious, invisible spirit. The invisible spirit is God, not the guru. The guru is a person. God is not a person. God takes the form of guru to be a person, to reach where persons are. God is already reaching every person, but he is not relatable because he's not a person. Why is this so hard for kriya yogis to understand? Well, it's because they want so much to have a guru, so badly, and they can't find a kriya yoga guru, and the ones that they find are charlatans, and they want a guru. They don't have to have. You don't have to have a guru. You have Yogoda, you have Encinitas, you have the way that they're set up. Their organizations are set up. They have lessons. They have Sunday services. They have monks. None of which are the guru. They're not. They're not the guru. Some mysterious invisible force is not the guru. Just tell it for what it is. It's a path. It's a path of study of the philosophy that Yogananda thought was best for Kriya Yoga initiation from the monks. But the reading of the lessons, Yogananda's books that they compiled from his satsang, tell it for what it is. Say exactly what something is. Don't make up something about something to make it sound better. None of those are the guru. In a sense, you're taking those things to be the guru, and you're taking those things to be the teacher, but they're not the guru. Yogananda knew this. Yogananda never said that they were. Prananabananda says here that they are. All the gurus say that the guru is a person that you can study with. In the aid of a guru, one can become knowledgeable in all scriptures if you just read the Gita. If you study, if you understand the Gita, especially with the aid of a guru, you read any other scripture and you're going to understand it because it's the essence of all the other scriptures. So it doesn't mean you can't read the other scriptures, but study, learn, and assimilate the Gita first. And then you can read the other scriptures because it's like the Gita becomes part. The Gita is, in essence, is inside the other scriptures, so you recognize it. One does not at all have to separately study any other scripture. Vedas, Upanishads, Puranas, anything. Just it's all condensed in one little book. It's all right there. Just put it in your pocket. You see, there's the one that the master gave me in India is about half the size. It's about, well, yeah, it's about from there. And this is small, so it's a tiny little book. Didn't have a jacket on it. And I made a jacket for it, and then when that jacket would wear out, I'd make another jacket for it with a razor blade and construction paper. In short, it can be said that the Gita is knowledge personified, or Gita imbued entirely with knowledge, no matter the objective in the world, meaning whatever you want to do in the world. On which one sets one's sight. Through the support of the Gita, one can see the desired path reveal itself in entirety. And that's true. Any project you undertake in the world, anything that you want to do, you get guidance through the Gita. So I would read a little bit of the Gita every morning before I meditated for about 3 minutes. That's all. In every endeavor, the Gita is like the guiding light of the North Star. In any endeavor, His guidance and its wisdom is there. It's constant and steady. If one knows how to apply it, the Gita, like a circle of light, can reveal the desired correct path. And try that if you have a little ambiguity about what you're doing. Just open up the page just by random and read it, and you're going to find the answer. You're going to find some guidance at least. The wisdom of the Gita is the summum bonum of that which governs the three worlds. It is said about the Gita. It is said about the Gita. This statement is pure truth, he says. In whichever particular way one applies the Gita, he will see its resultant fruit appearing favorably to him in that very way. The fact the Gita is Yoga Shastra for the yogi, philosopher for the philosopher, philosophy for the philosopher. It's astrology for the astrologer, science for the scientist. I mean, if you're an astrologer, read the Gita, and you'll be guided in astrology because your mind is thinking of astrology. The Gita uh, goes within the energy of your attention and makes astrology open up to you.
You mean literally, Guruji?
Well, you see, if you're an astrologer, your mind is cast, your mind is set on astrology. So in any endeavor, the Gita, you bring it in any something of any interest, and it's going to apply light to whatever your interest is. So your interest can be anything, and you'll find wisdom in the Gita that applies to your interest. So your mind is set, your interest is set, and then you read the Gita, and it gives you direction and that endeavor of your interest, like astrology or science or morals. If you feel that you're lacking in morality, or if you're interested in the pure morality, the Gita gives you guidance in morality. It also gives you guidance in science, meaning the understanding of the physical world, or a scientific approach to the spiritual world. But try it and see. If you have more than one interest, put your mind in that interest and then read the Gita. So I could take my interest were my main interest was when I always did meditation and satsang. And I served my mother and father, for example. But my interest in life was bicycles, and so I could take. I opened up a bicycle shop. I learned bicycles. I rode bicycles. I did everything in respect to bicycles. I even lived in the bicycle shop for a period of time. In the back of it, had a shower and a sink. So I'm in the whole realm of bicycles. So I could read the Gita because I'm thinking about different situations in which I'm doing bicycles in the service department, working with a customer, riding a bicycle. If I read the Gita, because my mind is in bicycles, the Gita speaks to me in the language that can apply to bicycles. In other words, it's not separate from the Gita isn't giving you wisdom only in spiritual matters. It's also giving you wisdom in all three worlds: physical, astral, and subtle. But try it and see. Any interest that you have.
Thank you, Guruji.
And the Gita is the path of right conduct for the sadhu. How should I behave as a sadhu? I used to be a sadhu. And when I first lived in India, I was a sadhu. You could say I was a yogi, but I was a sadhu also. The Gita shows you how to behave properly as a sadhu, how to be a sadhu.
Guruji, what is the difference between a sadhu and a yogi?
Well, in my idea of a sadhu, I might be wrong about this because I really haven't thought about it. But I think a sadhu is more of a one who has no possessions and is not dependent on anything. And whereas a yogi can have possessions, can have a family, or a yogi can also be renunciant. A yogi can have possessions, can care for possessions, Does anybody else have a more pure definition of sadhu?
I want to say the sadhu is maybe who leaves everything behind and goes and lives in jungle.
Is what now? I can hear you.
I say sadhu could be somebody who just leaves everything behind and go and live in jungle.
Well, that's a renunciant, but yeah, that's always been my idea of a sadhu, is one who begs for alms, doesn't have renunciant doesn't have a permanent dwelling, but just dwells here and there. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I never read what the definition is. I never really thought about it. I just kind of know what it is. So I could be wrong about that.
Gurudev?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also say renunciate, but I'm remembering one satsang where you were talking about renunciation is always mostly from the heart. So even if you are having renunciation with things of the world, I remember one satsang you were talking about the true renunciations from the heart.
Oh, it is absolutely. But a sadhu, you can be a complete renunciant and be a householder. So you could own a house, you could go to work, you could have a wife, you could have children, and be a complete renunciant, because it is from the heart. But a sadhu is different. I think a sadhu is somebody who lives alone, travels alone.
He's a roaming saint.
Is that what the definition says?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Totapuri, it was a Swami. And Swami is a title of respect. So I wouldn't refer to Totapuri as a sadhu, but he lived as a sadhu. It is very necessary for the Kriyavan sadhak to know that the Gita is Yoga Shastra, and Yoga Shastra means scripture of spiritual yoga, which is important to understand, because I understand that Kriya Yoga is spiritual yoga. It isn't. There's the Mahamudra. Marshall Govindan, who's from Canada, I think he still lives in Canada, started a organization where I think he teaches 108 mudras of Kriya Yoga, which he says came from Babaji, I believe. But they're just Hatha Yoga movements mostly, along with some mudras. So, that the 108, people use the 108 because there's 108 Upanishads. So what's the definition of sadhu, Kanika?
That's on Wikipedia. A sadhu is a person of unerring trajectory, or one who has achieved a goal by means of a regime of spiritual practices and disciplines called sadhana.
Yeah, that's true. But that could also be said of the yogi too. So it's not a.
Guruji, may I?
Yes, well, you have a dog named Sadhu, so you should know.
So, in tradition, a sadhu is the person who takes diksha into sannyas, and when he does that, he is reborn because he totally lets go of his family, his past, whatever he has done till that time, and he has to just start completely on a path where he has no home, no clothes. He has to be limited to very, very few clothes. It's like one pair of clothes, and he can have 1 or 2 meals in a day, and even he's supposed to have meal in a bowl, like everything mixed together. So it's a life of a complete renunciate. That's why renunciation is related with sadhu. And this is a traditional description. Nowadays, it's used little casually also for anybody who's more into spiritual path and kind of living somewhat similar life to a renunciate. And a true sadhu is not supposed to even visit a temple, a true sadhu. Nowadays, that kind of practice is not very common anymore. But a true sadhu is not even supposed to go into a temple or do a proper worship. His practice is more of yoga and sadhana. But in current times, it's all got mixed up. So it's different.
So a sadhu would be devoted to God without form. Is that what you're saying?
Almost, Guruji. You would say that the yoga sadhana that is one is supposed to do, the meditation and dhyan, and aiming for nirvikalpa samadhi, that is the path of a sadhu. Yes.
Okay, so Totapuri, well, the
Would be considered a sadhu, Guruji, actually.
Yeah. Well, the ultimate sadhu would be, we say he's the king of yogis, but he is also a sadhu, right?
Yes, Guruji.
Yeah. So Shiva is a embodiment of sadhu.
Yes,
Totapuri
Guruji. Yes.
definitely lived a life. We refer to him.
Sorry, Guruji, sorry. Shiva is married, Guruji.
Oh, he is
Shiva is
married.
not that way considered a sadhu. He's a
Right.
yogi. He's a true yogi. He's a guru. He's a mahatma. In that sense, he's known as the Adi yogi, the very first yogi. But he's not a complete renunciate because he gets married.
Right. And he's married twice, right?
Sorry, Guruji.
He had 2 wives, right?
It's actually the same person, same soul born again.
But in two separate bodies.
Yes. She dies and then she's born again.
So there's still quite a bit about Totapuri's life, but he is a modern day example of a true sadhu, not just those who renounce home and travel from temple to temple, well, not temple, but ashram to ashram for shelter and food. And Dehradun, when Archana and I lived in Dehradun for quite a long time, we would encounter lots of sadhus because the Himalayas are right there, and they would also walk through town. And we see a lot of them traveling, and some of them out in the wilderness. But those types of sadhus seem more comfortable around some institution or downtown where they could get shelter and food. They didn't seem to be too happy out in the wilderness. But a true sadhu would be the epitome of renunciation. So they would live outdoors. They would live in the jungle. They could go into town, of course, but they would be happy in remote areas. They wouldn't. They could get up every 3 days, like Totapuri did, and move about every 3 days. But if you're living in the jungle, if you're really living outside, it doesn't matter where you are. You can pick up and make camp somewhere for 3 days. It wouldn't have to be a town or a village or a city. Because if you didn't as a sadhu, if you didn't have food, if you were in such a place where there was no food, no roots, no berries, and no dried food, maybe chapatis are packable, maybe you're out. If he doesn't eat for a day, it's no problem at all. He doesn't find that disagreeable. Doesn't eat for 2 days, no problem. 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks, a month, sadhu wouldn't care. But when they come to a place where there is food, they'll partake food to appease their hunger, but they won't take food with them other than maybe a few chapatis, if even that. They don't stop. They don't stack. They don't stock. They don't ever anything for future use. They don't save money. They have nothing to do with money, except for if money is given to them. But they don't save it. They don't. Yogananda says this in the autobiography, when he and his friend ran away from home to the Himalayas, and his friend wanted to take some rupees. Remember, and Yogananda said, if you take rupees on a spiritual endeavor like this, then you feel you're not fully committing, because you feel, well, I always have the rupees if things don't work out, or if we're in an area where there's no place to purchase food, and it's a reassurance. And Yogananda said it wasn't pure reliance on God. And we're going to the Himalayas to be completely reliant on God. You should be completely reliant on God every day, even if you live in modern society, in modern times. You should still be completely reliant. We think to go without food for a period of time is austere, but it's just as harrowing and austere to be only reliant on God in a modern situation where you have bills and you have payments and you have loans and you have jobs, and you have children that are crying, and you have a wife who is yelling. I think because that is so much more challenging, that there's much, much more benefit because of it. I've been in situations dozens and dozens of times, probably at least 50 times, where I had to have total, absolute reliance on God. Had to. I've told you stories because I would travel a lot, and everything that I made, I wouldn't keep for myself. I would send it back to where my relatives lived. And so I would be up in the mountains with no money at all, but I had to pay for a motel. I'd sleep in a Suburban if I had to, but I had to pay for money for a hotel, to take a shower, to be presentable. And also I was continuing to paint. And I would, when I would go down hills, I would put it in neutral, so I would use less gas. So I would just use gas on the flats or on hills. And then I would, if I had some money left over, I would stay in a motel. And the next morning, I would go into the town where I was and cold call the shops to sell my artwork, and knowing that if I don't sell it, I won't have food, I won't have shelter, I won't have gas. Not just a dozen times, or 2 dozens, or 3 dozen, 4 or 5, 6 dozen times. And God always completely, totally provided for me. There was the other time, some of you know it, but some of you don't. I was going through a little mountain town, and they had a Jeep Cherokee. I'd always had Jeep Cherokees. I'd had 2 of them previously. And instead of pulling the big Suburban with the trailer all around town for short little trips, and also for the dogs, it made sense to buy just a little Jeep. And so I saw one in this little town, and it was $4,500. No, $4,500. No, I'm sorry. It was $7,500. And so I told him I wanted to buy it, and I gave him a down payment, I think, of $2,000. So I owed $4,500, but it was actually 4,300 and let's say 86 and 14 cents, something like that. And a couple of weeks later, I come back through town on another selling trip. And first I stopped at a store that's a regular customer of mine. And she always bought a lot from me. And so I displayed to her what I had on this trip. And she said, I want that, and that, and that. And she started to walk away. And then she came back and said, oh, I'll also take that. And I added it all up. And I told them I was going to pick up the Jeep, and it was exact to the penny, dollar amount and penny for what I owed for the Jeep. Not just to the dollar, but and it was an odd amount, but to the penny. And so I cashed the check and I gave that to the seller of the little shop that sold the Jeep. So it was to the penny. I experienced dozens and dozens of things like that. This is because only by taking recourse in the Gita. So if you're ever in despair or in difficulty or just irritable, if you're worried, instead of going to your doctor, no offense, Avatar, instead of going to your doctor and having him prescribe Xanax, go to the Gita. Try the Gita verse. I'm serious. Try it. If you're nervous, if you're scared, and I know that you are, because I get nervous and scared every day. So I know that all of you, every human being gets nervous, scared, irritable, tired. Of course, all the good things too. Be a master of knowledge. This is what Totapuri gave us, knowledge. Be a master of Gyan. Gyan is knowledge. And thereby merge his consciousness, heart, in the supreme cause. So this is what Kriya Yoga is. It's autobiography of a yogi. Paramahansa Yogananda referred to himself as a yogi. So it would be, a yogi isn't just one who practices Kriya Yoga. You're getting a much in detail, a big whole perspective of what a yogi is. And Yogananda saw himself as a yogi, and he lived the life of a yogi. And when you meditate in Kriya, you're meditating on God without form. You're not meditating on God with form. You're meditating on God without form. That's your aim. You meditate on light. You meditate on pranava. You meditate on vibration, for the purpose that the light will take you to the unmanifest. The divine sound will take you to the absolute unmanifest. The vibration Om will take you from material, astral, causal to the unmanifest. So you use those as stepping stones, as to hold on. It's like a God extending, or Guru extending the arm to lift you up into the absolute. You can very easily experience the absolute with Kriya Yoga practice. It doesn't take a long time. You can do it. You can do it on the same day that you receive initiation. Time's not it isn't a big achievement if you have if you have the right guru, which means any guru who has absolute knowledge and right instruction. And the guru that has absolute knowledge will very easily give you the right instruction. He doesn't have to refer to a book, or he doesn't have to hear a story about Lahiri Mahasaya. What did Lahiri Mahasaya teach? And then he reads the book and he memorizes it, so then he knows how to give it to you. No, he gets the knowledge from because he's walked the path himself, and he's completed the path. He's reached the goal, so he can easily tailor it to suit your peculiarities, suit your vasanas. Gita is Yoga Shastra, meaning it's a scripture of spiritual knowledge, spiritual yoga. So we want spiritual kriya yoga. The types of movements within the human being's heart. The types of movements of mind, even though the types of movements of the mind are vrittis and they're innumerable, meaning there's many of them. You can't even count. But even though the vrittis of the mind are innumerable, they can be divided into 5 types. But look at the whole of your thoughts on a particular day at a particular time, and you can divide those thoughts in general into 5 categories. And this is everybody's thoughts. And when you first sit to meditate, you're meditating on thoughts. Thoughts are the first thing that present themselves. And what type of thought am I thinking? See, on the surface, it look like I'm thinking all sorts of thoughts at random, but they're not random. They can be put into 5 categories. So this is something important to understand. Kishpta, the unsettled and restless state of mind is termed kipta state. So when you first set to meditate, you're kind of unsettled, and your mind's kind of restless. So you're having restless thoughts, you're having unsettled thoughts. I'm trying to gain my poise. That's kishpta. Muda is the second. When the mind becomes overcome by lust, anger, sleep, drowsiness, laziness, and such, and thereby loses its sensibility, literally without knowingness, that is the mumda state of mind. But I'm recalling I experienced all of these different states of mind, states of thought. Vikshipta, when the mind finds a particular thing that brings it pleasure, it becomes attracted to that. And sometimes you meditate and you have a pleasurable thought, and you kind of stay in that pleasurable thought for a while. It becomes attracted to that, and upon taking that up for a while, becomes somewhat settled in it. So you're meditating, and maybe you're outside and you're meditating. The sun is coming up, and you picked a particular big rock on the river, and the sun's coming up, and it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and you momentarily have a thought of the heat, so you think of, well, I'll break my meditation now and I'll go swim in the river, and then I'll be cool, and then I can go back to meditation. I can be cool. I won't be in my own meditative state because of the heat. But by its own erroneous nature, it immediately becomes unsettled and restless. So if you have a nice, pleasant thought, your mind becomes settled, and you think, "Oh, finally, meditation has started." But it isn't. It's just a state of mind because you're thinking of pleasant things. If you don't have a guru, people can spend decades or even the whole entire lifetime just thinking pleasant thoughts, remembering pleasant things, or imagining pleasant things. Remember, Yogananda was in meditation, he was building houses. And Sri Yukteswar called for him, and Yogananda got somewhat angry with his repeated calls for him. And he said to himself, he knows what I'm doing here. He knows I'm meditating. Why does he keep calling me? And Sri Yukteswar knew that he was constructing houses in his mind. But that will happen in meditation is your mind will, okay, you're not going to break your meditation. Let me give you something pleasant to think about. Or let me give you something pleasant to imagine. And you're agreeable. So, well, that's why I'm meditating is to be pleasant. So I'll continue with these pleasant imaginations and thoughts. The restless state with momentary rest within it is really called the vikshipta state. So notice that. That's another one that you'll definitely experience. Ekagra, when the mind focuses on one thing internally or externally without being succumbed to the restlessness of rajaguna action, or the stupor of inertness, tamaguna or tamas, and only with the help of sattvaguna becomes steady and still in that state of focus and sees only the reality of that thing. And where the mind is not attached to anything, that is also ekagra state of mind. So these are the 5 states of minds that you'll have thought and that you'll experience in meditation. And it's good to recognize which one you habitually reside in. If you're a beginning meditator, meaning if you're not very advanced spiritually, you're going to spend possibly many years in Kshipta, which is just simply restless thoughts. And eventually you'll have a moment's peace, a moment's of quiescence, and then the restless thoughts come again. That's the Kshipta category. That's what most people experience for possibly their whole lives if they don't have a guru. Muda, the second, if you don't have a guru, you can also struggle with this your whole life. Your thoughts of lust, thoughts of anger. You'll be sitting, you'll be thinking, oh, that person really took advantage of me. You'll think these things in meditation. And you'll start to feel anger. You're meditating on peace, but you start to feel anger as your thoughts take you away into how somebody wronged you in the past. They might have wronged you as you're going into the meditation hall. And then sleep, drowsiness, people have trouble with. That's muda. Just laziness. That's why it's important to keep everything in order. Keep your food in order. Keep your sleep in order. Keep your diet in order. Keep your room in order. Keep your house in order. So it'll usually if you notice these different states start to graduate into higher states of mind. So with vikshipta, you're starting to progress when the mind finds a particular thing that brings its pleasure. So some meditations, there's meditation teachers, there's meditation organizations, meditation for corporate employees, that sort of thing. And it's generally meditation on pleasant things. Ekagra, when the mind focuses on one thing internally, now this is you're starting to progress, you're able to bring your mind into focus. So these other 3 states of thoughts are not habitual. And so you're able to settle on one thing in your meditation without succumbing to Rajaguna, which is movement, action. For example, in this state of mind, you could be meditating outside on that rock by the Ganges, and then the sun comes up, it's getting hotter and hotter. But you're not, you're aware that it's getting hotter, but you're not concerned about it. It doesn't produce a thought of, let me go for a dip in the Ganga and then come back and meditate. That'll be good. I'll be cooler. So my meditation will be better. The Ganga is holy, so I'll be blessed, so my meditation will be better. You don't have those thoughts, which are just thoughts that will break your meditation. Naruda, when the mind becomes ekagra in that aforementioned way and forgets its own self. So now you're really progressing. Your thoughts are of a higher order. With no movement or thoughts within the mind, they become subtler and subtler. And then eventually no thoughts at all, which are no vrittis at all. You're concentrated. Not even is there any objectful, meaning nothing, no thought of any external object. And becomes totally devoid of any movements and is without support of anything. So it's without support of divine light. It's without support of divine sound. It's without support of divine vibration. It's without support of Om. And it thereby becomes one with or united with its own cause. Now this is meditation. This is when your meditation, this is when your kriya yoga starts. Remember, kriya is these 4 states of thoughts that I described. That's kriya. And then the 5th state of thoughts is when you're actually entering into yoga. So kriya without yoga is just activity during meditation. Kriya has to be with yoga. When it's with yoga, you sit to meditate, and you've eliminated or greatly diminished the strength, the hold that the former states of thought have on you, and you're able to go right into yoga. So this is what Yogananda demonstrated when the devotee asked him. And I heard the first-hand account. How do you practice Kriya Yoga? In other words, you're teaching us, but you haven't showed us how you do it yourself. How do you do it? So he didn't say anything. It just sat, and his eyes were open, and he became very, very still. And they said that his body became like stone, and the color came out of his body and started to turn almost blue, like a baby is blue before it starts breathing. And his eyes became empty. After 5 or 10 minutes, I think he said about 10 minutes, and you could see the pink coming back into his body and the light coming back into his eyes. He said, that's how I practice Kriya Yoga. Now, there should be a real emphasis on that, and there is. Self-realization fellowship for those that are really serious, not in their so much in their public programs, but they do put a lot of emphasis on yoga and Kriya Yoga. The activities are really for the public primarily. But within the ashrams, they do put a lot of emphasis on yoga. So Nirodha means arrested, stopped. So the restless thoughts have stopped. The laziness, the lust has stopped. And sometimes you go through these different states of mind over a period of years. Like you might have some restlessness in the beginning, but that you easily move beyond the restlessness. But you might have a period of your thoughts are primarily lustful, for example, and you may remain that way for some period of time, meaning days, weeks, months. That might be the theme of your thoughts, and that eventually moves on. You become easier to approach yoga in the higher states of the active mind. So Kriya Yoga has to be with yoga. When Yogananda initiated people, when he did it himself, it was usually a small group, and he made sure that they understood and that they experienced. He made sure that they saw divine light and heard divine sound and felt divine vibration, and that they did those kriyas, and then he made sure that they experienced yoga. So he made sure that they experienced yoga, that they experienced this what Ramana Maharishi refers to as quiescence. That's yoga. There's no you in yoga. Yoga is when you, the restless embodied being, becomes unrestless and unembodied, and you rest in God. So the problem isn't experiencing that. The problem is sustaining that. So many of you have mentioned to me that you can come to this state, but then you start to become restless again. So you approach every meditation for yoga, and you make that longer and longer and longer over a period of time. So just to master your asana, for example, I teach your goal is to sit completely, absolutely still to master your asana for 20 minutes. And then add 10 minutes to that for 30 minutes. And then add for 45 minutes. And then 60 minutes. If you can be completely, totally still for 60 minutes, you've accomplished a lot. No matter what, you hold still. No matter what, no matter how much your body, if your legs fall asleep, completely asleep, if your legs become really painful, they're just aching for you to stretch them, don't stretch them. You've committed. Once you built up to that hour, you're committed to that hour, no matter what happens. If somebody yells fire, the house is on fire, you still, no. The house might be on fire, but I'm not going to get up. Literally, it has to be that dedication for 1 hour. Then you've accomplished a lot as a yogi. How to attain that Nirodha and what kinds of states have to be experienced before that state. All of these things, meaning the method of practicing yoga and its before and after states are written, is what is written in the Gita. From the beginning to the end, it's clearly in the Gita. You don't need any other scripture. As I said, I've always had the Gita with me. I've always read the Gita. And then I read other scriptures, but only after I understood the Gita. And then I read Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I was only introduced to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras 14 years ago. I never even heard of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. I just took the knowledge that my guru gave me and told me to practice, and that's all I practiced. That's all I did. I didn't read. I didn't search out new books. I had the Gita. I found new scriptures that were in line with the Gita, you can see the essence of the Gita were within them. But just occasionally, I wouldn't spend a lot of time reading. I would spend my time meditating. In the course of 14 years, I studied Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, but it's everything in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras is in the Gita. And so why I never felt the need to read two scriptures. 'Cause everything in the Yoga Sutras is the Gita. Everything. There's nothing in there that you can't find in the Gita. Well, you say potentially mention cities, powers. That's also in the Gita. But as a yogi, there's no reason, even though those powers will come to you, there's no reason to develop them. It's a distraction from yoga. These cities, and you're counseled to stay away from them. There are three states of sadhana: devout and dedicated practice. First one has to practice kriya. It is after this practice of kriya that experience comes, and then faith comes with experience, and it continues to strengthen as you have more experience. When faith is strong, when experience is strong, devotion dawns, because your consciousness throughout the day and throughout the night, there's more and more, because there's more and more attunement with God. You're having more and more experience in life that life is nothing but God. That God created life. God created the world. God sustains the world, and God will destroy the world and all of its harms, all of its pains, all of its pleasures, and then what is transcendent to that. And then all the three worlds: physical, astral, subtle. So with this churning of devotion for yoga, knowledge comes forth. That's why the yoga that Totapuri taught was referred to as knowledge. With the yoga that he taught, you have experience, and with that divine experience, you are closer to divine knowledge, and then you have divine knowledge. This threefold: faith, devotion, knowledge, experience, devotion, knowledge, is what becomes the three sections of the Gita: karma, doing, vipansa, worship or immersion, and gyan, knowledge. The Gita's first chapters are about karma. The second chapters, sana, and the sixth chapters, gyan. These are the three sections of the Gita. The sequence of the chapters of the Gita are actually the sequential stages of yoga sadhana. The kinds of attainments that the sadhak comes into one after another. That is really what is written in the Gita, chapter by chapter, sequentially. Those sequential stages are as follows. Now, this is all from Swami Pranavananda, the saint with two bodies, his comments on the Bhagavad Gita, which he says is the only scripture ever needed. Having become bound by Maya, which is what we find ourselves in, we're born, Maya is illusion or delusion caused by the illusion of the world that we find ourselves in. And then being entranced by the I-mind delusion, the ego, that combination, you're in illusion, and you think that you're separate from everything, that this is me, my body, my mind, my thoughts, my experiences, my awareness, that's samsara. And it is samsara. It's really unpleasant for the one who has finally become to disdain the lie of worldliness, that it never gets satisfaction. Promises it. I mean, it's come down so silly. I don't see advertisements very often, but they bombard you everywhere with advertisements. But advertisements and on TV or video are really, really stupid, aren't they? The character on the TV, they make them seem really, really stupid, very easily swayed. They usually make them look stupid, act stupid, and then they finally they find this wonderful product, the best product ever made, and then they're jumping for joy, and they're shouting and singing and dancing. A lot of dancing in TV commercials to try to show how happy you are with the product. I mean delusion is samsara. At first because of Viagra, and having to begin the destruction of affected attachments and egocentric nature, which are the seeds that manifest as worldly desires, meaning illusion and me and myself, form desires for I want me, myself, I want those things as the creation of worldly desires. And eventually you become despondent. I'm sure all of you, in seeking the fulfillment of certain desires and struggling and not achieving it, are coming really close, and then having pulled its way out of your hands again, and gone a little further down the road and said, come closer, come. And you come a little bit closer and you reach for it and it's pulled away from you again. And the desires that you have, you can become despondent over that. I remember very clearly the times I became despondent because I couldn't get what I wanted, even after repeated attempts. And afterwards, by the grace of the guru, you come to understand the difference between truth and untruth. The accounting of the subjects and rising up in order to destroy the I am the body idea, vanity, misconception, becoming engaged in the practice of acts to get rid of likes and dislikes, lust and anger. After that, upon gaining experience is knowledge. In the practice of understanding what ignorance and pride of knowledge are and getting rid of them. Having done the sadhana of making prana and apana equally, thereby becoming purified in heart and casting off the pride of doership, destroys the force of karma, which are actions and their consequences. Think about almost all the troubles that you have. It's because of some action that you took, because of some desire that you had. After that, upon attaining the state of steadiness, steadiness of asana, steadiness of mind, in order to be rid of world-oriented thoughts, then you come to meditation, the sadak, then take some meditation on the self. After all that, then you start to become steady in your meditation on the self. So people, there's many, many of them. And they have groups on Facebook and everywhere else, books, lots of books. They read a little bit about Ramana Maharishi, just be the self, and they think, well, that's it. I just disregard everything and I'll just be myself. Not understanding at all that to be yourself means to be your true self, meaning you have to become disentangled with thoughts of the world, thoughts of entanglement with desires. All that's required first before you can steady yourself in the self. I can hear the words of Ramana Maharishi. I can become still and steady. And then I leave the satsang hall, and then I have a little bit of drunkenness after that, and that effect wears off on my regular restless, deluded, ignorant self again. The kinds of attainments that the sadhak comes into one after another, that is really written in the Gita, chapter by chapter, sequentially. The sequential steps, stages. So also the Gita is becoming is the practice of, as taught by Krishna in the Gita, is to constantly remind yourself what is untruth and what is truth. Constantly remind yourself. What is untruth? Anything that comes and goes is untruth. Anything that is born and then deteriorates is untruth. So let's look at those things which are untruth, which we are hopelessly bound to, it seems. As hard as we try to untangle ourselves from it, we just go back to it. This body is me. This is untruth. Well, for most, that's the inconvenient truth, isn't it? Well, I enjoy eating, and I enjoy doing this, and I enjoy doing that, and I enjoy my body. And I enjoy doing things, which is not contradictory to the life of a sadhu or a yogi. They also enjoy the body. But the body isn't being used for conquest of the world. The body is being used for kriya yoga, for the practice of kriya yoga, for the attainment of gyan, of knowledge. Whereas others, they also enjoy the body, but what are they using the body for? Well, they're using the body primarily for pleasure and enjoyment. I enjoy something touching that has a particular tactile feel that gives me a sense of pleasure. There's all different touches that give us pleasure. Taste. I avoid those things that taste bad, and I like those things that taste good, so much so that I think about them. If I don't have them, if I, as an example, if I eat ice cream regularly, just a little bit of ice cream regularly, and then I decide not to eat ice cream. The next day you won't have any ice cream, but you'll be thinking about the ice cream because that's what you do every day. You have a couple of spoonfuls of ice cream, and then you decide not to eat ice cream for several months. And so the next day, because you ate ice cream the day before, you think about ice cream that day. These are your attachments. These are detriments to yoga, or entanglements that prevent you from merging in yoga as a devotee. I've always seen my goal not to merge with God and yoga, but rather to merge it, to immerse myself, merge into perfection of devotion, of a devotee to God, as Hanuman did. I think that's quite an attainment. And to me, it's the thought of it appeals to me, because because of my experience, I know that devotion to God, devotion to God with form is immensely pleasurable. And there's no bondage in it at all. There's no bondage whatsoever. So you could have your cake and eat it also. Whereas if you can just completely immerse with it, you would be the cake. You wouldn't be able to eat it. You would be the cake. I don't being an individualized soul. I don't see any appeal to my annihilation. I would like to continue to experience being God's devotee, because I want the pleasure of that. And I'm addicted to the pleasure of that. I don't, so much so that if I have a time, if I have a brief span of time that I'm not acting in, if I'm acting in my self-interest and I'm not serving God, then I feel a little despair. The accounting of the subjects arising in order to destroy I am the body idea. Misconception, vanity, becomes engaged in the practice of acts to get rid of likes and dislikes. So I read the Gita and did all of these things to get rid of likes and dislikes, to get rid of lust, anger. After that, upon gaining experience, knowledge, understanding what ignorance and pride of knowledge are, and getting rid of them, having done the sadhana of making prana and apana, kriya pranayama, and thereby becoming purified in the heart, casting off the pride of doership, destroys the force of karma, actions and resultant consequences. So we have events in your life where actions, things happen to you. There wasn't a particular knowledgeable reason why they happened to you. In other words, you didn't make a mistake and this happened to you. But it just seems like events, things in life are happening to you. It's your karma bearing fruit. So modern spiritualists are saying, I see the quotes, things aren't happening to you. Things are just happening. Well, that isn't true. Things are happening to you because of your karma. It would be nice to think that they weren't, but to say that is not very wise. Things are happening to you because of your karma. Now, you can, if you're a devotee of God, if you're truly devoted and practice that in life, the things that happen to you will be harmless. The potency of the harm will be taken out of it. Meaning, it's like a bee that might sting you, but there's no venom. It goes through the act of stinging you, but there's no effect of your eye becoming swollen, because God looks after his devotees. God prevents the karma from happening, the harmful effects of karma. Like I told you, I was riding my bicycle and a car hit me head on, and I went into the windshield, rolled, and it came on my back on the side of the road, and I wasn't injured. The car was going probably about 50 miles per hour. Destroyed the bicycle, but it didn't hurt me. I was hit by a driver head on in a car accident, destroyed the car, but it didn't hurt me at all. I didn't have any injury, not even a cut. That car didn't have airbags. So it was an old Jeep. Um, After that, upon attaining the state of steadiness and settledness, which is what Kriya Pranayama, remember, Yogananda says, practice Kriya Pranayama, and then rest in the side effects, which is steadiness and settledness. You become quiescent in order to be rid of world-oriented thoughts. So before you meditate on the self, the energy flow of thoughts towards things of the world stop. You're no longer having those categories of thoughts. They become less and less, just like those sequentially, evolve spiritually higher and higher. As Yogananda demonstrated, I'll show you how I practice Kriya Yoga. He went right into meditation on the self immediately because he's a master at what he does. I practiced meditation for decades, and I could do that for short periods of time. After a long period of time becoming settled, it would take me a long time to become settled. This was after I left the Indian Mahatmas and gurus. And even when they came, some of them came to live with me. I started to have some unsteadiness because I was starting to become a man, and I was starting to become more involved with the world. But at least I had that previous experience. I knew what it was. But if you continue with your meditation, and eventually, if you stick with it, you'll come to a point when you can be in any state that you want to be in. You'll be fully self-controlled of your states of mind and your spiritual states. You can pick out whatever state that you want to be in, and you can instantly be in that state. So if you want to explore different realms and different states, you can do that. If you because you're safe, you're no longer lost. You don't have to worry about something influencing you anymore. And in the higher states, you can experience those. Wouldn't it be nice to wherever you are, wherever you go, whatever situation you're in, you can go within, just like a tortoise brings its legs, retracts its legs into its shell, and it's fully protected. That you can do that instantly. And what if the tortoise tried to retract its limbs into the shell, but tortoises have sharp little claw-like things. But if it was entangled in a weed or entangled in some twine, and it couldn't try to retract, then the resistance was coming. It couldn't fully retract. And because I've worked with turtles with my father, I watched hours and hours observation and being with turtles. And occasionally because their claws are sticky, they will get caught on something, and they try to retract. They retract all their three limbs, but that one they retract it, but it doesn't come in fully. They'll bring it in as far as they can, but it doesn't come in fully. So that part is exposed to some danger. The sadhaka comes by the grace of the guru. He comes to thoroughly realize the difference between untruth and truth. And when you really know the difference between untruth and truth, it's easy to maintain your peace, because you see, well, what's coming at me, it's untruth. And untruth can come few ways in your prabdha karma, but it doesn't disturb your mind or your life. So you see a group of people that you have an involvement with that become unstable and they're coming towards you. So you see like a wave in the ocean coming towards you that has seaweed and poisoned fish and pollution, and that wave is coming towards you. And you know you're going to be immersed in that, but you put on a special oil that it's all just deflected off of you, but you're in it. But you know that it has momentum. It's coming from here. It's but then it's going. So you don't lose your equilibrium. You're steady. It doesn't smash you down. It just goes over you and in you. And sometimes those things might last for momentarily for 10 minutes or 10 years. It depends on the karma. An example, my brother for, gosh, how many years? 66. Yeah, for 64 years. He was actively trying to cause me harm, actively working at it as his profession, trying to cause me harm. And it never harmed me because I never let it, because I was aware of the situation that he was doing. And so it never did harm me, never hurt me, it never physically hurt me. It took things away from me, but nothing that I cared about, because I didn't care about money. I didn't care about what my parents thought of me. I'd already made it my decision to live a spiritual life. So if he was arguing all these things about me, oh, he's a bad this, he's a bad that, he's a this and this and that, I didn't care because I knew what I was. And yeah, so over 60 years of that, it never affected me. So that was a big wave, but I never succumbed to it. It never drowned me. So there's all sorts of waves that come to you. They're generally your problems, but know that all your problems are temporary. I mean, think right now of all your major problems, and most of them are in a past tense. Some of them are in a present tense. You're going through something. But the very words going through something means that you're going to come through. You're going to come through it. You're going through it. You're going to come through it. So you might want to find a peaceful place to run away from the world, but it follows you there because you're still thinking about it. You're still mulling it over. You're still dwelling on it. Another example, my mother had a sister. They were real close. And her sister, just playing with her, took a pillow and put it over her face, just in a playful way. And it traumatized my mother, not being able to breathe momentarily. And her sister kept a pillow on her face, not knowing that it would cause harm. And my mother can never have anything on her face ever again for the rest of her life. Anything. She can never ever have a blanket over her face or a sheet over her face or anybody touching her face or what a dentist does or what a doctor does or putting on a mask for whatever reason or anything to do with obstructing her face. And it was that way up until her death. She never got over it. from something that happened. She died at 82, so it's over something that happened, gosh, over 70 years ago. So is there anything in your life like that? All you have to do is renounce it. If there is something, it's repetitive thought that's become a habit, a repetitive feeling that becomes a habit. Let's say, of course, there's lots of causes, but most people are afraid of public speaking. There's a reason for that. The primary reason is self-consciousness. You have a high degree of I am this separate self, and because I am the separate self, other people will be looking at me. Other people will be judging me. Other people will. I'm a separate self. I also make mistakes. I have strong points, but I also make mistakes. Other people will laugh at me. Other people will make jokes about me. Well, think of all the good things from you talking. People could learn more good things about you. People could learn, gather knowledge through the subject matter that you're good at through your talk. But the fear is still there. You can't do anything about it. So you do what Sri Yukteswar said to do. You face your fear. Do it just once. If you do it just once, you'll probably be cured. Put yourself in a situation where you speak to a good sized audience of at least 10 people. 20 people would be better or more. And do that once and you'll probably be able to speak publicly at any time without, you might feel a little bit nervous at first, then the second time, the third time. But after several times, after a dozen times, you'll never even have a hint of self-consciousness when you talk. But start off doing this, and this alleviates a lot of problems in other areas of your life too. If you can speak without thinking, what do people think of me? So in other aspects of your life, you'll be less inclined to care what people think about you, just because you gave a public talk. And then you'll hear some criticism of you. The real hindrance is your fear of criticism. If you hear the criticism, you'll say, "Well, it's not so bad." That's all it is. I know differently. I know that I know this, or I know that I made a mistake. So I have no fear of making a mistake in front of others again. We all make mistakes, and we'll find that people actually are more fond of us if we do make some mistakes. Not to be afraid of making mistakes. So you can practice in that way of being fearless in life by doing the things that you're afraid of doing. I was born with lots of fears. Deathly afraid of public speaking, deathly afraid of heights, deathly afraid of being in enclosed spaces. I had everything. I never had a fear of animals or that sort of thing. Those are my three primary ones. So I did all three of those. Whatever it is that you feel is holding you back from being steady. And then you have the positive things to practice. Practice the meditation. Attend satsang. Take time in your life, give a portion of your life to satsang, that's devotion. Give a portion of your life to meditation, that's devotion. Give a portion of your life to seva, that's devotion. When you're actually giving a portion of your life, a giving of your time, giving of your doing, actually doing, not just reading about it, but actually doing, or not just observing someone else doing it, but actually doing it. So this is Swami Pranabananda, saint with two bodies. It's interesting to know that Yogananda's biggest endeavor was his commentary on the Gita. That was his biggest endeavor. Sri Yukteswar did a commentary on the Gita, and you can buy it. He didn't give a commentary on the whole Gita. He did some sections, and then Lahiri Mahasaya also did a commentary on the Gita. He didn't write the book; it's verbal, but you can buy the book that wrote down his verbal commentary on the Gita. So read the Gita, and then also if you want to spend a certain amount of time reading every day, which I recommend reading the scriptures in a couple of different ways. Pick a time to read, just like you pick a time to meditate, and that's what I would do. Is I would pick a particular time to read, especially if it was a new book. Well, I'll read at 4:30. I'll say I'll read at 4 a.m. and I'll read from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. So I'll read for 2 hours, and I'll do that every day until the scriptures finish. So approach it just like meditation. But also, if I have a little free time during the day, because I'm in the midst of reading the book, I'll spend 10 minutes or 15 minutes at odd times during the day or in the evening reading. But I'll definitely always read between 4 and 6. And then the evening, if it's a quiet evening, I'll read some before I go to bed. If you do it in that way, you can read books extremely quickly. And I always read a scripture very, very quickly to just consume it, the whole thing, and then I would read it again a little slower. If I read it first very quickly, when I would read it slower, it seemed that I could assimilate it more, and then I would read it over and over and over and over. And then after I thoroughly assimilate it, then I would just randomly, like I do now, is just turn to a page in the Gita, for example. And any part of the Gita applies to what you're going through in life at any moment. So it's and it takes your mind off the world before meditation. You just by picking it up, even without reading it, just by looking at it, after you read it, and even years later, just by looking at it and then sitting to meditate, your meditation is going to be so much better. Because it's the inspiring word and presence of Krishna. And it's austerity, it's renunciation, it's knowledge, it's everything. So his commentary on the Gita is the Pranam Gita. Yogananda's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita is very good. It's quite different from other commentaries, and you definitely should have purchased and read his commentary on the Gita. If you haven't, then you should. It's quite a few pages, but you can read it in You can read it in a week. At a leisurely pace, you can read the whole thing in 1 week. Have any of you read his commentary? Yogananda's on the Gita?
I have Guruji.
Yeah. Good. How long ago was that?
A few years back, Guruji.
Okay.
What I used to do was before meditation, I would read a verse
Mm-hmm.
and its commentary, and then I would meditate. So I followed that. So I took a very long time to complete the Gita.
Yeah. Well, that's probably a much better method than the one that I said is. But you could just read the whole entire, because something like that, I'm enthusiastic about it, so I want to read the whole thing, and then read like you did, or you could just read it like you did. But instantly, it takes your mind out of the world. Instantly, just by reading just a little bit. The reason most meditations aren't successful is because you haven't prepped. Put yourself in the seat of meditation. You're not stable and steady. Your mind isn't steady and stable. And you say, "Well, I'll let the meditation stabilize me," but it's always stabilize and then meditate. Yeah, Arjun?
Guruji, sorry, I raised it by mistake.
You what?
I raised hand by mistake.
Oh, raise your hand by mistake. Okay.
Guruji, I have read Swami Kriyananda ji's version, but I think you said that read Yogananda ji's SRF version.
Yeah, I read Swami Kriyananda's version probably 3 times. It's very poor. It's not very good. It might seem good to those who aren't very knowledgeable about the Gita, but it's not a. It's just general surface understanding of yoga philosophy that he does in his commentary. He said that he was with Yogananda through a good portion of Yogananda's actual writing, and he helped him with the writing, and that he gathered a lot of it through kind of I was there, being there, sort of kind of a osmosis towards a sort of thing. The reason I say it wasn't very good is that it didn't come from his realization. Very much of it was, maybe he has some enlightened ideas from it, but it wasn't powerful. His version of it. It's just kind of a mishmash, rehash of points that he remembers, because he did it. He wrote it from memory, from his memory of being with Yogananda, and he said that he had perfect memory, and he's always had perfect memory. And some people have very good memory, but nothing should be written down spiritually. Nothing should be done from memory. It should be done from realization. So you can't give a good commentary on the Gita without having realization. How else can you do it? I mean, scholars comment on it. So I've read some scholarly commentaries on the Gita, and it's just dry and uninspiring. And I like Kriyananda's better because it wasn't dry, because it came from his experience of being with Yogananda. So that part of it I liked. But I didn't. I still have it. I have it here, and I think I have another copy in. In India we have 2 copies. And it's his commentary, you can read it. You can read that fast. You can read that in 2 days. And it's not very dense. It's all very light. Whereas Yogananda's commentary, I mean, it's dense, meaning it's full and it's powerful, and you really have to really assimilate it. So I'm just dwelling on this because it's true of what people write, commentaries of people who write things. You can tell by your own experience. You can well, we'll just use an example that comes to mind: Yellowstone National Park, where they have geysers and beautiful mountains, beautiful valleys. They have buffalo, elk. They have wild wolves. I've been there. In those different settings, every setting is with emotion. And because I've been there, I was there in the winter when nobody else was there, and almost in the middle of it. The snow was coming down, and I wasn't in the car. I was outside, and way off in the distance on the left, I heard a wolf howl. In that setting, it was wild. It's like puts a thrill up your back. The sound of a wolf uncaged out in the wild in the wilderness. And then way off in the distance to the right, I heard another wolf howl. I mean, they were miles and miles apart. And it was like mesmerizing because the way it made you feel. It made me feel like I'm wild. And these are wild creatures. And then the whole packs on each side howled. Now that's immersive. That's experience. Whereas I could go to Yellowstone with the tourist, and I could, maybe see some buffalo. We could go to the geysers, and I would never see a wolf. Maybe you might see a wolf cross the street, cross the road, but you wouldn't have that. You wouldn't have that depth of experience. So notice that some commentaries are like that. It's like a child wrote it, whereas others, like Yogananda's, and it's serious, realized truth put into a book. And then Yogananda said, I put a portion of me into this book. He did with the autobiography and also with the Gita commentaries. And it wasn't done from memory; it was done from realization.
Guruji, why didn't SRF publish it for so long?
That's beyond me. That's just this. First of all, it's terrible. It takes it had to be a real high degree of wanting to make it physically presentable in the best way possible. To me, the scriptures that aren't physically presented perfectly, I prefer those. I don't like the ones that are done over and over and over and edited and sanitized and then perfected in that way. I don't want that kind of perfection. So if you notice, SRF is very slow at everything. I don't know what they do all day. The monks. I've wondered about what do they do? Because they're slow at everything. They're only open for a short period of time on 5 days a week, maybe 6, and they don't open until 10 or 11 or something like that, and they close early. What are they doing? They have lots of monks. At the convocation, the president, and he said, like it was like an Apple presentation. He said, "We've spread throughout the globe." He said the monks of SRF have visited last year. They visited 18 cities. 18 cities. as if that was some big accomplishment. 18, the monks should visit 18 cities in a week. As many monks and nuns as there are. So I don't know what they do. So apparently they did the same thing with the Bhagavad Gita. It took them 50 years, half a century. And it took Yogananda, what, a couple of weeks to write that? It's miraculous. If he wrote it in a few weeks, the commentary is much easier than the writing. 50 years, that's just extremely negligent. I don't know. I would like to observe what they do all day. I have no idea what they do all day. What do the monks do? And then the monks are so hard to talk to. Why? I guess because they sleep a lot, and then they have breakfast, and then they have their quiet time, and then they have an hour to do something, and then it's lunchtime, and then they have lunch, and they have an hour to do something, then it's nap time. I don't know. Quite amazing. But sort of, government works that way. Government's very slow at everything. Whenever you put a large group of people together, it should be faster and more efficient. It shouldn't be slower. And the government should be faster and efficient, but it isn't. But you look at Paramahansa Yogivah with his Kriya Yoga International Organization. He himself is going from city to city to city. You can't keep up with him. He's he just because I follow him. He just did the Guru Purnima, and now he's already in another country, I think. Every day he's somewhere giving satsang all over the world himself. And then he also has sannyasins that go all over the world. Some stay in one place, but they're all over and they're busy. They're doing. Ramakrishna's disciples, they were always available in person all the time. You could approach any of them anytime, wherever they were. Out of all the organizations, I would, in general, I would, if somebody asked me where to go for Kriya Yoga, I would tell them to go to Yogoda or Self-Realization Fellowship. I would do that for most people. If they were really serious, I would definitely tell them to go to Kriya Yoga International. Third would be Ananda. And I've been following Ananda for over 50 years. Yeah, for about 50 years. And it seems that's more suited for people that want more of a group companionship approach. In other words, I'm going to be with friends. I want to be with people. I'm going to do activities. I want to be engaged in those spiritual activities and that sort of thing. SRF doesn't do that. Kriya Yoga International does that, but they do it in a really good way. Each ashram or events, they just had Guru Purnima, for example. It was all done by volunteers. So SRF has volunteers at the convocation. It's all volunteers. Kriya Yoga International is doing things with volunteers every day of the year. Ramakrishna's disciples organized themselves. Ramakrishna didn't do it, but they stayed working all the time. Very, very productive and engaged and available to truth seekers. But SRF has a real slow, measured way of conducting things, which is good. And their eye for perfection in what they do is also very good. It's just lacks energy. It lacks availability. That's the only criticism I have of it. You know, the things I criticize them for, if you go into that isn't entirely true. If you're really serious about Kriya Yoga, and if you progress, if you get a little bit more on the inside of Self-Realization Fellowship or Yoga, and they see that you're seriously practicing, they'll talk about many of the things that I talk about as far as meditation goes. I'm curious because you were with Kriyananda a lot. Sunny, did he give? I'm sure he did. Did he to some people? Did he give real serious instruction in meditation?
I think so, Guruji. Um, I have not seen him directly give it, but I have been with him in satsangs. I have been with him in question answers, and his focus was always on God, and that's what I liked about him, or on Guruji, like on Yogananda ji. So he was very clear about there, and he never. In fact, I was noticing that he never did those healing exercises. He was not doing, so many of those other things. But he was very true to what master, or for him, master he used to refer him. And then some of the senior uh, Naya Swamis who are there, you see the impact which he had on them. So that also kind of shows that there was a transfer of Yogananda ji's teachings, and also of Swamiji in a way. But I have also seen, uh, the shifts happening after he passed away.
Yeah.
So I saw a drastic shift in things. So that's been and that's where I feel that he was really holding it together. To at
It was
least
definitely
God, to focus on
definitely.
God, because when it is social, no, it can go anyway. Because social is everybody comes in with their experience and their thoughts. So a lot of people want God, they talk God, but I think now I see it, it's all very different, and it's all like, going into so many directions that God takes only a less percentage, and then you start feeling dry. Uh, Whoever is coming for God.
Kriyananda, if I'd gone to India a little bit sooner, I definitely would have gone to see him for sure. But what I gathered just watching the videos, especially, but I read all of his books, is he definitely uh, he felt love, he felt kindness, he felt sparkly enthusiasm and energy, and as you said, the whole focus on everything he did was God and Guru, God and Yogananda. And then he had lots of personal experiences and time with Yogananda, uh, which has a real effect on somebody's uh, energy that they can give to others. So I definitely see that Yogananda gave him a lot of as a conduit uh, for that energy, and then the teachings themselves were really not as important as the energy that he embodied of Yogananda. It had a transformative effect on a lot of people, because a lot of people, the course of their life were changed just because of him, not because of what he taught, but just because he was teaching it as a disciple of Yogananda. It's quite amazing. But that's good and it's true. But as far as as far as realization and teaching from the realization, there was some of that, but there wasn't very much of it. But not everybody needs that in the beginning.
The other thing, what I have noticed is he always was talking from his experience, and he would not shy away from saying, I don't know, when he didn't know. And then he also did something which Yogananda ji did, which is now frowned upon in some ways. Like what you said, he used to go to masters. So he had spent time with Anand Mohima. He spent time with one of Ramana Maharshi's disciple. And there's a whole book where he met so many saints. So he was always, really soaking in from different masters. He met Muktananda, so many of the things he was doing. So in that way, he was very authentic seeker, and he shared all of that, his issues, and he had all these diseases. Like, he used to have hip replacement, this, that. So he was all. So, but I think what really happened is when I was in Ananda, it became Yogananda ji was perfect and he was the learner. So, it is almost like Yogananda ji was blocked that he ever had diabetes. I never knew he had any disease. I thought perfect masters are perfect before I heard.
That's what everybody thought. That's what I thought too. I thought they were perfect at everything and everything. I thought that they knew everything about everything all the time, which is ridiculous. That's what I thought. I thought, well, God knows everything, so they must know everything because they're one with God. That's just a boyhood idea. Okay, it's that time, and we'll see you, Kalmanigi. TK.
Thank you, Gurudev.
That's a Gurudeva.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Tatsat.
Gurudev.
That's that. Thank you.
Pranam, Gurudev.
Tatsat.